And I just figured we had to get together and talk, because after I talked to Adam last week, he was asking me what I thought maybe some early career professionals might be concerned about, especially considering how so much time is wasted in written communication, and sometimes it might not be the best way to go. And I know it can be a little bit intimidating to have to approach somebody, especially if it's real time, to talk about a difficult conversation or give some kind of feedback if something's not going well. So I thought I'd throw the question out to you. What do you think? You've dealt a lot more like with Gen Y and Gen Z, millennials and Zoomers. Tell me what you think helps early career professionals when it comes to improving on their interpersonal intelligence. Do you have any ideas?
Well, I can talk to you first about why I think it's happened. So understanding the why can maybe, find the path out of it as well. But, those generations have been brought up with screens, a lot of screens, which is principally it's a barrier between two human beings who have a screen in the middle. And those screens can bring enormous value, but they can actually inhibit person-to-person communication. And we talked about this last time, didn't we, about how you become less inhibited when you can speak through a device, and it's much more difficult then to actually face another human being and say what you need to say. And so I've seen this growing over the years. I've seen this getting worse and worse and worse. And it's more of a problem for those early career professionals when they are walking into a workplace. And of course, we know that that's less and less common, with people becoming very independent and working from home through the screen. But those who are in a working environment and do need to use those traditional communication skills, human to human, I can see exactly where those insecurities come from. And I think that that's something that I try to work on in education, is keeping that humanness very at the forefront, making sure that there's a lot of human connection, communication, and collaboration, because that element of how we speak to each other is key to the success of a company. There's some of the statistics that I've seen you write about. It's shocking, because we're not using communication effectively, and just picking up the phone and getting something, whacked out quickly and done is becoming less and less common.
Well, here's the thing that I wonder, because it's true. I mean, starting over 10 years ago, when we went to asynchronous and texting, it affected the whole millennial generation to the point where they pretty much started avoiding using the phone. I could tell you, my daughter, you know her, she preferred one day to take half a day off of work to go to the university in person to solve an administrative issue rather than make a phone call to the student aid office. And I think that illustrates that what the Harris poll says, because imagine how much money she lost from not being paid those 4 hours that she took, the gasoline, sitting in the waiting room, waiting to be waited upon or taken care of. And then just think of that. It's exponential compared to maybe a 20-minute phone call she could have had. So I'm wondering if now what we're seeing is the fallout from that. And do you think, because I'm seeing a lot of this talking about the importance of human connection, I'm seeing a lot more coaches. There's even somebody giving young career professionals coaching on how to talk on the phone. So do you think there's a movement back towards more connection? I mean, AI can help us do wonderful things, but it can't still solve a lot of the things we need to solve with each other.
Absolutely.
What do you think?
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely, definitely. It's funny, I just posted a LinkedIn post today precisely about this. And with the school, one of the schools that I'm working with in the US is, look, you've got to prioritize the human connection. We have to go back to getting people talking to each other. And a lot of schools are now virtual. A lot of work is now virtual, where you can actually communicate with each other just through messaging. Mm-hmm. And you'll have a Zoom call and people won't switch the cameras on because that's more comfortable for some people, but it doesn't mean that it's more effective. It means that it's a detriment to our communication. I've thought about this before, about why my own children don't like me to call them on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
That's so intrusive and invasive because they have their things going on and they're not expecting that. It's, I will look at your message when I want to, or when I have the moment to see it, or when I have a break. But an interruption such as a phone call is something that is just not tolerated these days, even though my doubt and their response needs to be, in that moment, is just something that has become extremely unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
And that means impact, because we don't resolve our issues as quickly as we could because we're just so hesitant to actually enter into a phone call. And I wonder as well, if it's a video call like this, okay,
Mm-hmm.
we have the visual element, the audio element. If it's just a phone call, I wonder what the younger generations, I wonder why they feel so averse to the traditional phone call.
Well, I was reading yesterday actually on LinkedIn, somebody saying, people are all zoomed out. So some people are preferring just to go back to the phone call or not put their webcams on. And I thought, okay, well, wait a minute. It's one thing to use Teams or these platforms as an impromptu, spontaneous thing like a phone, because nobody actually uses their phones for phone calls anymore. But it's another thing to start using that as a pretext, saying I'm zoomed out, so I'm never going to put my webcam on again either, because that's not going to solve anything. And people are going to revert to texting again, or just,
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that that's the case?
I'm seeing this in my work every day. I've seen this shift to, okay, everything, pandemic, everyone's on Zoom, cameras going slowly off, off, off. And I would say to people, if you were standing in this kitchen here with me and I was talking to you, would it be okay if you stood behind the wall?
Yes.
Would that be acceptable? No, there's no way in the world that is something that we want to invest in. That it's okay for me to stand behind a wall. We're still humans at the end of the day, and we need to stand in front of each other and communicate. So that, I think that we're trying to move back towards that, of getting people comfortable. Okay, you're at home, you're on the screen, but we still need to connect. And this is the danger of AI. One of the dangers of AI is that we can become very disconnected. And I think that's quite a big risk, a big threat. And we talk about this threat and opportunity a lot with AI. And it's remembering that human connection that we need to do now, especially with the younger generations who are so used to being, using a screen as a form of communication.
Well, let me ask you, as one last thing to leave it on a happy note. What do you recommend either to students or young career professionals to get over a little bit, to get beyond this reluctancy to do the real-time communication thing? Is there anything that you can suggest, or give a good reason why there should be a little less reluctance to avoid the spontaneous conversation?
I mean, I'm a coach. I'm an education consultant, and I know that coaching is the place for introspection. And so we try to coach teachers to coach their students into that space of introspection of, where am I at? Where do I want to go? What are my goals? What am I not doing well at? What am I excelling at? And a huge part of our conversations is always the communication aspect.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't create communication, good communication and community in education, we can't move on. It's the same thing in a professional environment. A team does not function well if they're not connected, well communicated. So I think that coaching space of just, let's sit down and introspect, it's a conversation that needs to take place so that they themselves can question, why do I hide behind a screen? Or what is it that's difficult for me? I talk a lot about metacognition in education. We want students thinking about how they think, constantly, understanding the way that they function and why they function that way. And when you ask those questions and it's put to them, they can start to answer these questions for themselves. Tips and tricks, it's difficult. We're from a different generation, and seeing this through their eyes is the most important. So I think that self-reflection, and it should be constant throughout our lives. How
Mhm.
well am I doing? What are my challenges? That element of metacognition, I think it's super important for all of us. I don't know. I think we're just going to see swings and backwards and forwards.
I think so too. We see those tendencies. It sounds like it's more of a mindset and having a vision of as to where one wants to go. So, okay, well, this has been great. And Anna Shildrick, thank you so much. And
Thank you,
we'll be
Maria.
talking again soon, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Great to speak to you.